What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. Brace yourself for a very, very offensive interpretation of a German watchmaker. Go widescreen, Gato. When it comes to German watches, there's longer on one side and yonkers on the other, but there seems to be like a sweet spot in the middle that's just a dead center, and ignoring this sweet spot would just be a sin. Or dare I say a sin. And scene. It is 12:48 p.m. Let's get down to business. Alright guys, real quick before we go any further, I do want to take a moment and thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. Now, for those of you who don't know about Skillshare, what are you doing? They've been supporting this channel for a good long while, and they're incredible, okay? It's an online learning community filled with thousands of inspiring classes for creative people like me and probably you. Now, hear me out, okay? They've got a ton of things to choose from on Skillshare, but when I tell you the class I've been taking recently, everything's going to make sense, all right? So you can see this channel has been looking a little bit different lately, and people have been pretty impressed with the new equipment, with the visuals, with everything, and it's all thanks to this class on Skillshare, How to Make a Podcast, Plan, Record, and Launch with Success from John Lagomarsino. This guy is incredibly knowledgeable on this topic. I've been learning things like, okay, what are podcasts? Those kind of intro, right? But here's where it gets really, really interesting for me. Choosing your gear, recording tips and tricks, all right? These are things that you might understand, like, basically, but when you hear someone as knowledgeable as John, I feel like I know him, Mr. Lagomarsino, I'll be respectful here. When you're in the presence of someone that knowledgeable, it really will help elevate the content you produce. Now, I understand, okay, not everybody is into the whole marketing, entrepreneurship, content creation, and that's perfectly fine. Skillshare has a ton of other really great things for you, whether it be fine art, music production, maybe, animation. There's a whole bunch of things to explore on Skillshare, and again, taking these classes will really elevate whatever you're trying to accomplish. So guys, I've reminded you this a million times, but Skillshare is literally curated for learning, which means there's no ads, and the best part is they're launching new premium classes all the time. So you can literally just focus on whatever your creativity is and wherever your passions lead you, and there's not going to be any stupid, silly distractions. Now hear me out. Here's the good part. Okay, guys. The first 1,000 of my viewers to click the link in the description below will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Okay, guys? Don't miss out on this opportunity. Click the link and support the people that support me. I really do appreciate it. Skillshare, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. Let's get into it. Here before us in all of its glory is the Sinn 356 Flieger 2 Salmon. Now you can find these hovering online in the mid 3,000s, but let's just see what you get for that price. All right, let's take a look at the specs. 38.5 millimeter diameter with a 46 millimeter lug to lug, 15.5 millimeters thick. It's a stainless steel case. You're getting a Valjoux 7750 automatic 12-hour chronograph movement, an acrylic crystal, we're going to talk about that in a moment, and a threaded crown with a 100 meter water resistance rating. Now, they were producing these around the early 2000s, actually, but we should note that they do have a more modern iteration of this Flieger salmon that uses a sapphire crystal. It has a display case back and a Sellita SW500, and which are actually based on the Valjoux 7750. So there's not a whole lot different with the modern ones, but there are a few little doodads that they've tweaked. Now, I'm quite biased, right? I have a thing, a fetish maybe, for salmon watches. The weird thing is I don't even own a salmon watch yet, but I'm every time I see one, I'm just obsessed with it. That Mont Blanc pulsometer or whatever, the single push chronograph, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But we don't often see salmon dials with this level of detail. All right, it's insane. We rarely see any color dials with this level of detail, let's be honest. The guilloche is incredibly done. All right, the spiraling texture around the subdials, and just that contrast with the Arabics, it's perfect. It's legible, it's clear, and it's beautiful to look at. And speaking of clear contrast, that black day and date wheel, it's just properly bordered. It sticks out, but not like a sore thumb. Like, you can see the complication, you can read the complication, but it looks like it was meant to be there. It doesn't look like an afterthought. Now let's move on to the functionality of the watch. The crown is threaded, but the pushers are not. However, the pushers do have a really satisfying click when you actuate them, so you're not going to, accidentally bump them when you're underwater or anything. This is a chronograph that I do feel confident in its water resistance. Now the lume on the handset, very vibrant, okay? However, the smaller index lume, those marks are a bit lacking, but there's not as much lume there, so I'll give it a pass. Which brings us to the pros and cons. This is going to be really easy, guys. The pros, the dial, the detail, the dimensions are perfect. I love the robust functionality from such a wearable piece. Okay, this is a watch that feels strong, durable, tough. You're not going to have to baby it, but it's in a very wearable package for a very diverse population, right? It's not only dudes with huge wrists, and it's not only dudes with small wrists that can wear this, it's anyone. And a very subtle pro that I think a lot of people don't bring up when they're reviewing watches are the drilled lugs. I'm a huge fan of drilled lugs, especially with watches that you're going to be wearing a lot. Like, it could be dressy, you throw it on a leather strap. It could be a little field watchy military, put it on a NATO, maybe a sailcloth strap, maybe a bund strap. I think that this is super, super diverse when it comes to design and wearability, and I think the drilled lugs just make swapping out those straps that much easier. But there are a couple cons, okay? With the good comes the bad. The first con would be that acrylic crystal. And I know the second that I read the spec sheet and I said acrylic, people rolled their eyes and gasped and clutched their pearls. Acrylic, not very scratch resistant. It's not sapphire. It's not hardlex. But, it is what it is. I'm sure that you can swap this out for a sapphire, one of the more modern sapphires, but it has to be on the cons list. And then the index lume is just very lacking. Now, thankfully, the handset lume is great, so you're still going to be able to read the time, in low light situations. But here's my takeaway. All right, it's no wonder that secondhand Sinns are fetching the prices they fetch. They are going up, in fact, on the secondhand market, and it's because people are realizing that they make some dang good watches. Their watches are insane when it comes to functional German watches. Often when I'm talking about German watches that are underappreciated, I think of like a Glashütte original, right? I'm always gushing about Glashütte. Please pay attention to GO. They're incredible. They're so underappreciated. They're like Longas without the Longa price tag. But the truth is, aside from their, dive watches, GO is a dress watch that you're not going to wear in a ton of situations. But Sinn is in this sweet spot just below GO when we're talking about prices. But the functionality is all there. And they have some beautiful dress watches as well, but when we're talking about these functional watches, still with some useful, interesting complications, Sinn is where it's at, dude. Like, Sinn crushes it. So, thank you so much to my viewer who sent in this beautiful Sinn. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to give it back to you, because this baby looks pretty good on my wrist, if I do say so myself. But thank you guys for supporting me. I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave me a comment. Let me know what's your favorite Sinn and what's your favorite German watch. I'd love to hear from you. And please subscribe if you haven't already, and please hit the bell if you haven't already, because, it helps the channel out a lot. Thank you guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. Always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it. Dab.